You're listening to Country Squire Radio.
Welcome to Country Squire Radio. I'm Bo.
And I'm John David.
JD.
Hey, Bo. Good morning, brother.
Man, good morning. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. We're having a lot of fun this morning, trying to get woken up a little bit. This is my third cup of coffee this morning. Man, I found a local coffee roaster that I finally really like.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's the guy that roasts coffee for Sneaky Beans. It's called Bean Fruit Coffee.
Yeah, okay.
He's right here in Jackson. Great guy. He's got a really nice medium mild roast called Crimson Stain. And Crimson Stamp.
Okay.
And man, it's incredible. Really good. I've been drinking in my French press. I love it.
Good, man.
So
I'm really excited, man. We've got something on the horizon that we're about to be talking about, and it's one of my favorite subjects to go into on the show. Of course, I'm talking about our pipe culture series.
That's right.
Now
we've had so much fun with that.
It's really
and it always
blast.
evokes like all this feedback, which is fantastic. But people are really passionate about what it kind of means to them, and it bleeds into kind of the comments in the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you who might be new to the show, we take on this topic of pipe culture, which is the idea that there is, there's the central things about pipes and pipes tobacco and pipe tobacco rather, and the various nuances and blends and all that good stuff, and that's stuff that we talk about all the time here. But we've had this kind of theory that there's a lot that kind of goes into the culture of pipes that go beyond just pipes and tobacco.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage you, if you've not listened to it yet, go back and listen to Pipe Culture Volume 1 and 2 that's on our iTunes feed. And you can kind of get an idea of the research that we've been doing in this area.
Yeah.
And it's something that we always love to pitch to you guys. So as you might recall, the first time we did this, we left it very open because we were really kind of defining the parameters of what is pipe culture. And then in Volume 2, we looked at what are kind of the legacy, where people begin their journey into pipes and pipe tobacco. With Volume 3, what we're going to do is, let me kind of paint you a picture.
Yeah.
If you could kind of imagine in your head a large circle, and that large circle is pipe culture.
Right.
And inside there are 4 intersecting circles that are kind of all inside of pipe culture.
Mm-hmm.
And those are kind of things that are kind of connected with pipes. And they, some of them are on their own, some of them are intersecting, but it was relaxation, recreation, thoughtfulness, and craftsmanship.
Yeah.
And those are kind of the 4 kind of pillars that are kind of part of pipe culture. So what we're going to do in Volume 3 is we're going to talk about craftsmanship.
Yeah.
And what we want to hear from you guys is just kind of some personal stories. Maybe you are, maybe you're a woodworker. Maybe you like to work on old cars. We want to hear some of your stories about how, things that you're working on, things that you're creating.
Yeah.
And also how that might tie into your pipe. Maybe you're, puffing on your pipe while you're in your art studio. Maybe you're, after you get done building something, you're enjoying a pipe, kind of reminiscing about this thing that you just created. I know for me personally, like, for example, this table that JD is currently using.
Very sturdy table.
Yeah, I built that. And I remember after I got done building it, while the glue was setting and all that good stuff, I was sitting on my porch, puffing a pipe, drinking some sweet tea. And it was awesome, man. It's just kind of part of that process. So,
and talking about craftsmanship too, I mean, there's that sense in which, let's kind of define it a little more, like, craftsmanship is in making a pipe, but then also kind of the things we do with our pipe, the labor that goes along with our pipe. I mean, I think that's, obviously kind of what we're getting at there. Those hobbies and events and work that we do as we're using our pipe and how our pipe kind of plays into that.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
It's exciting, and people, have so many great stories. We've got several local folks that, they smoke their pipe, like you said, when they restore vintage vehicles and things like that. One guy smokes his pipe. He's an EMT and smokes his pipe whenever he's not on a call. He props his door open at the corner up there by I-55 and just kicks his door open and puffs his pipe, waiting on his next call.
Awesome.
So.
Well, and I want to broaden it to a little bit so that we're, we are, a lot of times when we're talking about craftsmanship, we are talking about, kind of physical goods. And one of the things that we love talking about in this digital age that we live in is things that are tangible.
Yeah.
But I know that there are a lot of coders and a lot of people out there that kind of create these digital goods as well.
Yeah.
And that is a craft and in and of itself. So I don't want to exclude you from this conversation. If you've got, if you're a coder and your pipe kind of plays a part into that, let us know because we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah.
So that is completely open. Can't wait to hear those thoughts. Again, you can email the show, csr@podastery.com, to get us your stories, and really looking forward to reading those. You guys always come up with some great stuff.
I'm excited too. Yeah.
Let me tell you, man, we have got one of the best audiences in like the history of podcasting. Let me kind of tell you this. The other day, and maybe this is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that's okay. The other day I was preparing for this show, and I knew we wanted to do a pipe culture, or not a pipe culture. We wanted to do a Pipes 101 show.
Yeah.
Because we haven't done one in a while. And I was like, what are some good beginner questions? I post out the question on Facebook. Floodgates. And like in 5 minutes, we had 12 responses. Excellent responses. Too. It's ridiculous. So anyway, we'll get into that in just a minute. But first, we got to do a little Celtic Fest roundup, man.
Man, we do. Yeah. Golly, so much fun. I feel like we need some bagpipe music to kind of segue us into this. But man, it was great. Yeah, we had for those of y'all who have been listening, we had Celtic Fest here in Central Mississippi and Jackson this past weekend. And it was, 90 degrees and the heat index was probably 115 and just awful. People were like passing out and stuff, but drank water all day long. And man, it was just fantastic. The kilt, gives you a good bit of
airflow.
Yeah. Man, it's so great. We sold almost 30 Churchwarden pipes, which was awesome. Made a lot of new friends. Several Celticus pipes from our local carver, Barry Lyle. Man, it was great. We just had a lot of fun out there. Next year, we had so many people congregating by the tent and smoking. We were the only vendor out there that kind of had a following,
Yeah.
Like people were like hanging and lingering and, just being part of the community. And next year, we're going to actually have 2 tents. One will be obviously our booth and the other will be a lounge.
That's such a great,
Isn't that amazing?
I thought about that as we were sitting back there. Because of course, I was only able to go for part of the time this year. My little girl was sick and that kind of threw our weekend off. But I did still come out and see you guys and get my pipe and hang out. And I'm like, man, this is like a little, it was almost like the smoking lounge is in the back. And I was kind of like, I wish we had shade in the front because this is kind of, part of the experience.
That's right.
And also, but it was great because when I was sitting behind the table and like somebody walked up, I told the intern, I was like, hey, Tim, you got a customer, man.
It was really, you were kind of like spotting for us.
That's right.
It was nice. It was nice. Yeah, it was always a really good time though. Celtic Fest was great. It's kind of part Renaissance fair, but part like, a lot more like heritage appreciation and stuff like that. They have classes on like, dancing and the Book of Kells and all this kind of stuff. And big Kaylee, the big Irish dance on Saturday night.
And I wish we could have gone. Like that was the big thing that we really wanted to go to and bring my daughter to, but we just couldn't do it. Of course, the other thing they have is that whiskey tasting, and I was able to go to that.
How was that, Bo?
It was a lot of fun. I wasn't going to go because our good mutual friend, the judge, who is now engaged, by the way.
Man, he is engaged.
I know that his engagement kind of threw off his weekend. Normally, last year I went with the judge, and this year he wasn't going to go with me because he had better things to do.
That's right.
But my brother and I went and had a really great time.
Yeah.
This year, I think it was actually even a little bit better because they were a little bit more generous with the whiskey.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. In fact, at the very end of it, I just kind of went up to one and I was like, I have no more tickets. And just kind of held up my glass. And they hooked me up. It was great.
That's perfect.
It was a lot of fun, man.
It was great. Well,
good stuff. So, got to meet a couple listeners too. We of course have a lot of our regular listeners were hanging out in the lounge and one or two new faces I was able to meet. So I'm always excited to meet some people in the wild.
It was really good.
Yeah.
Yep. It was really good.
All right. So like we mentioned already, we are doing a Pipe 101 or Pipe Smoking 101 episode.
Yeah.
The concept here is that we like to look at beginner questions.
That's right.
Things that if you're a new pipe smoker, you're kind of contemplating. I've noticed when we did our first Pipe Smoking 101, it is one of our most searched for episodes. It's a lot of people, it becomes an entry into the podcast for those people.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who are out there and asking these questions and every single one of us that's a pipe smoker began somewhere.
Oh man, we all did.
For the most part, I would even go as far as to say 95% of us, that first experience, we had a lot of unanswered questions that took time and we had to kind of go and find mentors. And, I've heard so many horror stories that really line up with mine where you didn't have the best mentor. And
That's right.
You almost wanted to jump out as soon as you got in because you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah, and a lot of people do,
Yeah.
I think that's the interesting thing is we go into pipe smoking. I mean, I remember when I was 18 and, started picking it up a little bit. We go into it having these images of, fireplace and robe and big book and just gently puffing your pipe while, drinking coffee or something. And everything's really easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you smoke your first bowl and you're like, this was all a lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of hard at first. It's really finicky.
I'm reminded of a scene from Parks and Recreation where Tom Haverford, he's really wanting to be part of like the local cigar club.
That's right.
And like he's doing everything he possibly can.
Really bad. Yeah.
Yeah. He's doing everything he possibly can to get into it. And in the end, it's kind of this big moral decision. He realizes that he has to side with his friends rather than kind of the establishment that was controlling the cigar club. And so, Leslie Knope, being the great French she is, she establishes his own personal cigar club.
Right.
And he walks in, he's got like a smoking jacket, the red thing, and a big easy chair. He lights up a cigar and he puffs it like 3 times and then looks at the camera and says, I do not like this.
Like the whole episode is centered around him achieving this.
Right.
And he finally does it. He's like, man, this sucks.
Exactly. But expectations is a huge part of pipe smoking and just kind of getting into it.
Yeah.
And one of the and it was one of the suggested topics that was brought up for this particular category by Matthew Butler. And he writes, he says, what should the perfect draw and smoking experience feel like?
Mm-hmm.
When I started, I had no idea what to expect, as there was no pipe smoking veterans that were around me.
Yeah, man, what a great question. And, so many of our folks, just in our Country Squire radio community have no tobacconist in their hometown.
Right.
And so that's why, our community that we've developed here is so important for so many folks because this has kind of become that for people. But, it's amazing. You don't know if you're buying a pipe at Walgreens, what on earth you're supposed to do.
Right.
You just have no clue. You see a bag of tobacco and a pipe, and you might see a tamp somewhere, but you sure don't know what it is or if you need it.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that you just kind of have to figure out. But yeah, a perfect draw is interesting. You pack your pipe, and initially you think you want it to flow really, really easily. But then you pack it and it packs too tight or, something else. And so it's one of those things where you have to experiment with it. Typically what we tell new pipe smokers is, you want to pack the very bottom of the bowl as gently as possible, but then as you go up the bowl, get firmer and firmer and firmer. And that's a pretty hard and fast rule. When you suck through the pipe stem, that's something you want to feel good airflow, but you want to feel some resistance.
Right.
You want to feel some resistance because what you're trying to accomplish there is, pulling that air through all those leaves, making sure, just that when you're lighting that pipe, sucking that fire deep in there, that it's going to have a lot of contact with, what's in the chamber there. Still breathing really well, but you want that resistance there.
Yeah. Another thing too, with kind of that first experience, I remember with my billiard pipe, packing it terribly, by the way.
Yep.
And then lighting up again terribly, by the way, and pulling through. And when I was
this was like yesterday, right? Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Wow. I remember very specifically pulling in the smoke when I finally got a nice flow of smoke. That first one, I was like, oh, I got smoke in my mouth.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with it? I was like, and I almost felt embarrassed. It's a weird thing because nobody's there watching you typically.
Right.
But you feel kind of embarrassed because it's like, I just jumped into, I made this purchase, I made this pipe, I got all these things, and this is something I really want to get into. And that's the moment when it hit me when
I crossed over.
Yeah. I had the smoke in my mouth and I was like, I don't know what to do next.
Right.
This is a problem.
Do I leave it there? Do I shove it through my nose? Do I breathe it in? Do I exhale it? Like what?
Right, exactly.
What do I do?
Yeah.
It's there. What am I accomplishing with this?
Right,
yeah.
right.
I think, that's a lot of, I remember one really good friend of mine, he came to the shop and bought a really nice Savinelli one time. He was like, I'm going to dive in. If I'm going to dive in, I'm going to do this right. And he bought, just all the really good, setup and everything. And then we were sitting on my porch one night on his first smoke, and he was like, so you just kind of pull it in your mouth and then push it back out. Like, and to him, that was, he kind of had a hard time understanding that, eventually that once you continue to do that, you're getting all kinds of, excellent flavors and, it's interacting with your physiology in a way that's very relaxing and all this kind of stuff. But to him, he was like, it's kind of like drinking scotch, but then, you you spit it out. It's just a funny concept, You get into it and are not really sure. So.
But the rhythmical breathing is part of the. I mean, that's part of the overall
There's a cadence
experience.
to
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
There really is. Yeah.
And it's part of the benefit. And I think that if you go in thinking like, I'm going to, taste this smoke, and that's really what I'm trying to accomplish.
That's right.
That's not it. I mean, that's part of it.
Right.
But there's a rhythmical nature to breathing in and breathing out. And getting, having that kind of control and getting the taste of the smoke of the tobacco.
That's right.
And then pushing it back out.
Right.
And, one thing, a little cool technique that, I don't know, I think this might be debated as to whether or not it's a good thing or not.
Yeah.
I kind of like to blow a little bit out through the pipe. Right.
Yeah. We have some folks that do that.
Yeah. And I like it because for me personally, that's how I'm able to achieve the smoke rings.
Right.
I can I think every once in a while I'm able to blow one appropriately. But that's how, you give it a little bit of puff, and then you get that perfect ring that just flies up.
Right, or a little wispy thing that's really satisfying.
And that was about midway, from when I started to now, that was somewhere in between that I discovered that was even, a technique.
A thing,
yeah. It's a debated technique. I don't think that, some people don't think that's a good idea. I think it's great.
Yeah.
But, and that's part of it too, though.
I don't think I've ever blown a smoke ring, actually.
Is that right?
Isn't that terrible?
Oh, wow.
And I do this for a living. But, it's interesting when folks...
But you do blow the ships, like with Gandalf.
Oh, yeah, the ship, so I can do that. I can do
ring.
I can do like Mickey Mouse, fighting Donald Duck and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I'm really sophisticated.
Yeah, but just not the ring.
But the ring, that's too... I mean, that's too simple for me. It's interesting when folks come in and they are looking for that first pipe purchase, I always ask them, what is your goal here?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily say, what are you trying to accomplish? But, what are they trying to do? Are they, is this a relaxive, sitting on the porch thing? Is this a hanging out with buddies thing? Is it an alternative to cigarettes? Or is it something to do kind of to, take your mind off work while you're on a, 15-minute break or something like that? I kind of try to see what folks are trying to accomplish there. Typically, as is, with most pipe smokers, I think, who get into it for, just the, imagery of it. It's something to relax. It's something to, slow down and enjoy, take their, mind to, creative places and things like that. And so that kind of gives me the opportunity to enter in and just, tell them more about kind of the history and the romantic images of, how you do this and why you do the things you do and, how the pipe kind of, became what it is. And what that does is it allows the smoker to kind of enter into the storyline of the pipe.
Yeah,
and
I like that.
That's really, really special for me to kind of be the gatekeeper there as that happens. But, typically people, they come in, they say, okay, I want to smoke a pipe. So set me up. And, we find them a nice pipe. We kind of, walk them through picking out a shape. If they want a bent pipe or a straight pipe, and why they might want one or the other. The size bowl they would like.
Right.
Typically, most pipe smokers that are gonna go for a bowl or go for a pipe, for that relaxive kind of hangout effort, want at least a medium to large size bowl because you're gonna be sitting there a while.
Yeah.
That's the idea, is not to get a real quick puff break, but just to kind of be hanging out. And so. We kind of set them up with that, and then they look at me after they pick their pipe out and say, okay, what else? And then we walk over to the little counter and, pick our little tamp out and all that stuff and some good pipe cleaners and, sometimes a case to put their pipe in. But, at that point, they're like, okay, tell me what to put in it and how to do it. And, that's where it can get kind of complicated. Some folks have never smoked anything before.
Right.
And which is great. And some folks are coming from either the cigar or in the cigarette world. And so, you kind of have to re-educate a little bit in some of those areas, but...
and it is different, though, because I had experience with cigars in college prior to actually getting into the pipe after college. Mm-hmm. And so, it was a completely different experience for me. It's a different experience,
yeah.
It's not just jumping off of one bike and jumping onto the other.
That's right.
Completely...
And some folks, they go to a cigar for one reason and they go to a pipe for the other reason.
Right. Yeah.
That's what's interesting. A lot of folks, you would think as a tobacconist, okay, this person likes a really spicy, nicotine-laden, bold cigar. That's going to translate to that same thing in the pipe world. But a lot of times that's not the case. They when they're envisioning smoking their pipe, they have a much different goal in mind or just an idea of what they're trying to experience.
Yeah.
And so, so that's part of it too. But, we try to explain the idea of, when folks are, smelling the tobaccos out of the jar, okay, is this going to taste like this? Is it going to smell like this? And, sometimes the answer is yeah, sometimes the answer is kind of, sometimes the answer is no, not at all. But,
right.
You just walk them through that and then, continue to teach how to pack and tamp and all that.
And I think overall, when it comes to just your expectations as you're going into it, expect that it's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah.
Think about the first time that you drank coffee. You probably didn't like it.
Yeah.
But over time, you learned how to appreciate it and really get a lot of flavors from it, and it becomes kind of part of it becomes a defining factor in your morning.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with beer. When you depending on what beer you first started out with, but when you first actually had something that was like legitimate beer, not Bud Light,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it was different, and you were like, I don't know how to appreciate what I'm tasting here.
Yeah,
and it just takes time, and it just takes it's part of the process. I can go ahead and tell you this though: nobody who's listening to this show, and nobody that you're going to be around in the pipe community expects you to become a genius or know exactly what you're doing the first time you light up. Every single one of us started out the same way, so. Don't overthink it. Don't get worried. Don't get self-conscious.
Yeah.
I mean, I was only 4 minutes on the pipe light contest, right?
And you've been smoking for years.
Been smoking for years. I do a pipe podcast. So the point is though, don't put too much on yourself, and really, just expect to learn and expect to enjoy it while you learn.
A lot of folks, they come in, thinking it's going to be easy, and then they get frustrated because it is finicky and maybe a little more difficult than they anticipated. And, one of the biggest things we always hear is the concept of tongue bite, and a lot of folks don't even know what that term, but they come back in maybe a week later and they say, John David, like, my tongue, it's kind of hurting me, my tongue kind of feels like sandpaper, and man, it really lights me up. Is there something to help with that? And, that's where we kind of get into, tamping methods and the ability to keep your pipe lit without relighting. And also that kind of bleeds into the cadence of your puffing, which, I'll talk about more in a sec. But it's one of those things you have to really try to focus on keeping your pipe lit with new pipe smokers, because what happens is whenever you're relighting your pipe over and over and over, that's the hottest your bowl gets, is when that flame is down in there. And so you're constantly battling, if you're having to relight your pipe over and over, your tongue eventually just becomes like the inside of a boiling hot pocket, to quote Jim, to reference Jim Gaffigan.
Right.
It's just one of those things that, the more you relight, the more your tongue is going to suffer. And so, a lot of that goes, we had a listener this week that, Greg Walford, actually, asked us, he said, the pipe lingo proper cadence, what does it mean to sip rather than to puff on your tobacco? And I think that kind of goes with that, because a puff is a deep draw, and typically when I'm lighting my pipe, you're taking that deep puff, deep draw kind of into the bowl, getting that fire really stoked up. I kind of have an image if, back in the 19th century of, someone lighting their fireplace with one of those big billow things, that they're puffing the air in there to get it really stoked up and real hot. And, that's why, when you puff initially on your pipe as you're getting the bowl lit, you want to take those deep puffs to get that flame deep in there. And once it's good and stoked up, that's when you tamp it down, just by gently pushing. And then you kind of allow that's when your cadence comes in. That's when the sipping of your pipe comes in. And if you've learned how to do that, you've really learned how to smoke a pipe.
Yeah.
That sip are those short, small little wispy puffs that just over time keep your pipe lit. Now, it's difficult because if you're smoking a tobacco that you really, really enjoy, you don't want to sip it. You want to take a big gulp.
Right. Right.
And a lot of times we're tempted to do that, and that's when it can be very satisfying, lots of plumy smoke and all that. But, it's one of those things that you'll be more able to keep your pipe lit over a longer period of time if you just take those gentle, wispy sips.
And that's a good lesson for life, honestly. You don't want to just gorge yourself on this thing or that thing. You want to be able to kind of enjoy it in moderation, and that's the best possible way to extend out the pleasure that you're getting from it.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's good stuff.
Yep.
Well, excellent questions. I mentioned before, and I really, really do appreciate all of the wonderful feedback and thoughts on this particular topic. Of course, this is a series, so we will be doing Pipe Smoking 101 and definitely pulling from suggestions that you guys sent us on Facebook. So really appreciate that, and especially thank Greg and Matthew for their contributions today.
Pipe question of the week.
Pipe question of the week this week comes into us from Jason Brown. Guys, I and others on the mini group pages have stated that we are on tight budgets. Even a $100 pipe seems a bit much. Can you go through and discuss some of your favorite pipes for the guy on a budget? What is your pick if you only had about $30 to $50 to spend? Me personally, I enjoy buying estate pipes and restoring them to snag some good deals. Thoughts?
Yeah.
Now, this is a great question, especially for new pipe smokers too, who don't necessarily, because they're kind of in that, do I want to go full in on this stage?
That's right.
And they really just want to dip their toes in.
That's right.
And pipes can be very expensive. So JD, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question for the new pipe smoker. And as a tobacconist, I cringe when a new smoker kind of pulls for the corncob pipe.
Right.
Because he's thinking, I'll try it out, on this $5 pipe. But then if it's something that, just is fantastic, then I'll go all in. And,
right.
Again, as we talked about last week, corncobs have their place and they're great. But for most people, what they think of as far as pipe smoking goes, they're thinking of the quality of a briar pipe.
Right.
And so, I want someone to get a good enough pipe for them to at least appreciate what it can be like. But, definitely understand that, you don't want to spend $200 on a new pipe if you're just now learning and kind of figuring out if it's your thing and
right.
all that. So typically, most tobacconists will have what they call basket pipes. Basket pipes, kind of the image there is like, just a big bin full of just kind of cheap pipes that are made of briar, but kind of no name brand or that kind of thing. And, they may be anywhere between $20 and $40, something like that. And you just kind of rummage through them and pick one out. At the Squire, we have wall pipes, and our pipes are kind of displayed on our wall. They're all entry-level briars, and they start around $50. And, it's that briar that doesn't quite make the cut for, the Savinellis or the Petersons of the world, and they kind of get repurposed.
Yeah, so is the idea that, like, kind of to the naked eye, you can't really see it, but there's kind of blemishes here or nicks around the side that they just didn't get with their kind of top quality line, but ultimately good smoke. Good
smoke, quality briar, but it's one of those things that, maybe the briar hasn't been aged that long, or they certainly didn't put as much, thought or effort into the aesthetics of the pipe. And so, just not a whole lot of, refinement as far as, embellishments on the pipe or anything like that. A lot of times the grain isn't particularly pretty.
Right.
And so even though it smokes good, it might not have beautiful grain. And so they'll either rusticate it or stain it very dark, so you can't really see the grain very well. But, again, local tobacconists will have something like that. I highly recommend, if you're giving it a good shot, go, check out estate pipes. I mean, check that out, because that's a way you can get a very high quality pipe that's been used, anywhere between $20 and $60, $70, for a very high quality pipe.
Yeah.
And so that's a good way to go. As far as, new pipes that are very well thought of, the Savinellis, of course, they acquired Rossi. I can't remember exactly when it was, but a lot of I was talking to one of their reps recently, a lot of their, lower end kind of entry level stuff, they've kind of pushed over to the Rossi line. And you can find, those Rossi pipes anywhere between like $60 and $80. Great Savinelli briar, beautiful shapes. They have the balsa filter insert if you're interested in that, but, you're not going to pay over $100 for those. So, in the lines of the kind of basket wall pipes, you might find stuff that, say on the side, Luxor or Benton or, Mitchell Thomas is one we carry a lot at the shop. And those are great pipes, Italian, Mediterranean briar.
I think I've got one Luxor.
Yeah. I think my first pipe, like off the wall or a basket, was a Benton, and smokes like a champ. Love that pipe. Still smoke it. Clean it up occasionally. Looks great. And, that's kind of a good medium way to start. So I might check with one of those brands, but
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, my first pipe I kind of spent a little bit of money on, and then after that I kind of built my collection on wall pipes. And I've got a few rock stars in there that I'm really proud of, but for the most part I think it probably averages about half and half, if I'm not mistaken.
Now we have one more pipe question of the week. It comes from Jason Brown. He just tweeted in, if hipsters come in wanting to smoke a pipe to look cool, how do you drive them out? Or no, he says, do you drive them out with a whip? And I prefer a billy club, Jason.
No. Look, everybody is welcome.
All hipsters are welcome, but we try to transcend the idea of just looking cool and enjoying it. So,
the funny thing about the whole hipster thing, we should dedicate a show to that at some point.
We really should.
But I was trying to explain.
We could have the intern in with some of his buddies.
Yeah. But I was trying to explain this. I was like, it's a weird thing because you might look at me and think that I'm a hipster, and I'm not. Hipsters are trying to look like me, because when I was me, I wasn't cool, but now it's cool to look like me.
Isn't that interesting?
And it's such a weird thing.
So they're trying, we were just doing what we enjoyed, and they're trying to look
they kind of built
like someone who is doing what they enjoy.
They built a movement. Well, that's not to say they don't actually enjoy it.
No, let's think about it. If you're a hipster and you're watching or listening to this, let us know. Tell us, why do you smoke a pipe? I think I'd be really interested. Like, what got you into it?
Well, my question really is does the hipster self-identify as a hipster, or is it more of how culture, or like how we outside of, or I don't know. Like, that's the thing. I don't know if I now necessarily qualify as a hipster or not. And so that's where I'm trying to say is I don't understand where the line is.
But is it a mark someone else puts on you?
Right.
Yeah.
So is it because it gets used as a derogatory term. But I don't know if that's
sometimes
fair or accurate. I mean, are we defining hipster as somebody who is kind of faking it? In which case, that's an appropriate derogatory term. Or are we defining hipster as just this person who likes all these things?
That's
in which case, I guess I am one, but I wasn't trying to be one. I just was, and now you've labeled me.
That's right. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And that makes perfect sense.
So anyway, that's kind of an interesting conversation.
So Jason, we don't drive them out with a whip, but sometimes we ask questions about their skinny pants.
All right, great pipe question. Actually, great pipe questions. Jason jumping in for the second round. So that's
right.
Awesome, buddy. Thanks for that. Of course, you can send in your questions to us, csr@podastery.com.
Quick fire with the Squire.
You ready for this, Bo?
I think I'm ready.
Bring it.
Let's do it.
All right, quick fire with the Squire. If you bought the new iPhone, I know you're an Android guy, but if you did, would you get the 4.7 inch or the 5.5 inch?
I would buy them both so that somebody else wouldn't waste their money on them.
Wow!
And I'd take them out back with a baseball bat, a la
Office Space style,
and just go to town on them.
We've got some issues that, man, there's good therapists that can deal with that.
I'm an Android guy through and through. Team Android.
I'd have to go with the 4.7 because I have small hands, and to be honest with you, I don't want a big phone.
Yeah.
Like my existing iPhone is about as big of a phone as I want.
Well, Apple's got their big announcement today, and when I say I'm an Android guy, I'm not. I mean, obviously I've got an iPad and I've got a Apple computer.
Right.
But when it comes to phones, I am full on Android because that is very much about control of the moment, right? Because when you need your phone, you need to know exactly where everything is, and you need it to do exactly what you want it to. And I don't necessarily mind the limitations on an iPad because it kind of facilitates the needs that I need.
Right.
This has actually started to be somewhat limiting to me, which is why I now have a PC, a laptop.
Oh, you do? Yeah.
Yeah, that's Podastery Mobile right there.
Just
that's going to be
that.
Some fun stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to phones, I am Team Android all the way.
Golly, man, someone's passionate. I
am.
What is the better musical artist, Nickelback or Hinder?
Hang on, give me a Hinder song.
Honey, why you calling me so late? It's awful.
I don't think I've heard that song.
Oh, it's on the radio, man. It's terrible.
Dave Matthews.
Oh, fair enough.
I got to tell you something real quick. This is hilarious. This is actually from our boy Zach Bartels, who we had on the show a while back. I put out on Twitter, I was like, hey, who's the better detective, Sherlock Holmes or Batman? And Zach tweets me back and says, it's Sherlock. Don't Dave Matthews this. I was like, what have I done to the legacy of Dave Matthews?
That became you basically turned it into a verb.
Apparently.
That's fantastic. I'd have to go with Hinder. Would you rather study in a bar or would you rather dance and sing loudly and drink in a library?
Study in a bar. I've done that before.
Have you done that before?
Yeah. Oh, man. I love going to bars and reading.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to go to a bar solo, I do not mind like going and either listening to some music while I'm reading or writing or just kind of being thoughtful. It's nice. I haven't done it since I had a kid, and I've done it rarely since I've been married. But before I was married, I used to. In fact, when I was living in Memphis for the 3 months up until I got married, I spent a lot of times in bars reading and doing some of that premarital counseling stuff.
Interesting.
So.
Oh, yeah. I have yet to do that, but I've heard it's intense. I'd have to study in a bar. I think I've actually done that before, too. Yeah. All right, biggest travesty for our final question. Visiting Memphis without eating or visiting New Orleans without eating?
I love Memphis, but visiting New Orleans without eating is why? Why did you go? Yes.
For the smell on Bourbon Street. It's the smell. It's that trash nectar.
You have wasted a night of your life. If you went to Bourbon Street and that was your whole purpose, you wasted a night of your life.
Fair enough.
There's nothing wrong with like popping in on Bourbon Street, getting a picture, maybe stopping to an oyster bar or something like that. But if you're going down to New Orleans, and I've said this before on the show, I need to stop telling people this because Frenchmen's starting to get packed up, but you're supposed to spend you spend your time on Frenchmen. You talk to me first. I've got a whole list. I've actually got a Google Doc so that when anybody, and you could ask Charlie because he got this.
He did.
Anybody who goes to New Orleans and say, hey, where do I need to go? It doesn't take me 2 seconds. I just copy and paste because I've got the whole itinerary ready for you.
You've already got the kind of the boilerplate itinerary.
Dude, I love New Orleans.
Yeah, I'd have to go with New Orleans too. When you go to New Orleans, you have to eat. Memphis, there's a lot of stuff to do. We love barbecue.
Yeah,
it's excellent. Memphis, is the capital of that. But you have to eat when you go to New Orleans.
Absolutely. Great quick fire questions. If you'd like to shoot us some quick fire questions, love to hear them from you. You can email the show csr@podastery.com.
Your thoughts, your comments, listener feedback.
All right, we got a great email, and I tell you what, JD, do you want to...
You want me to take that?
Yeah, you take that email.
Yeah, this comes from Micah via email, and he says, "Hey, Bo and JD, I'm a fairly new pipe smoker, and I've become completely enamored with the hobby and community of pipe smokers. I've even started investing in some restoration and pipe making tools. I live in the Phoenix area, but I will be making a trip to New Orleans with my wife and some friends this November. I, of course, could not travel that close to Jackson and miss the opportunity to make a pipe pilgrimage to the Country Squire."
That's cool.
Wow, this is awesome. So I'm totally stoked about blocking off a morning to make the trek to Jackson and visit the Squire. I can't wait. I love the podcast. Keep up the good work. Hopefully I'll catch one or both of you when I'm in town. Sincerely, Micah Nicholson. Man, I am excited.
Yeah, dude.
Dude, we're going to roll out the red carpet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's going to be great. Man, Micah, let us know, give us a heads up kind of, when you're coming in. And man, if any of y'all are ever in the Jackson area, occasionally we've, had listeners from, passing through town on business if they're on their way from Atlanta to Dallas or something.
Right.
And, they'll stop in and just say, "Hey, we appreciate your podcast." And, or we've ordered tobacco from the Country Squire and, can't tell you how much I enjoy Hunting Creek or something like that. And, man, that means the world. So, dude, Michael, let us know when you're going to be in town. Let's hang out, dude.
That'd be awesome.
Have an extended afternoon. It'll be great.
And definitely give us a heads up too, because you get the benefit of everybody coming in and saying this. I never get to hear that kind of stuff.
I know.
And so if I have a heads up, maybe I'm free, maybe I'm not, but if I can swing by, I'd love to.
Oh, it'd be great. Yeah, Micah, thanks for the feedback, man.
Absolutely. And then the next one comes to us from iTunes. This is from
Creature Sid.
Creature Sid writes, "Amazing show. I have tried to get into other podcasts, but none have the content and sheer fun of the Country Squire Radio. Keep up the good work." Well, Creature Sid, man, we appreciate that. Man, you guys are awesome. I've already mentioned it numerous times, but the fact that I can go to you guys if we need some help with content, I mean, this really, the show's not you and me anymore, man.
That's right.
It really is a community thing.
That's right.
And, that's a fun thing.
Real quick, one more piece of feedback.
Yeah.
Pappy Joe actually tweets in. He says, "Reading a book in a bar. I used to do that when I was single, and it's surprisingly a good way to meet women." Maybe I should be doing this more often.
There it is. That's good stuff. Of course, we love getting all this feedback. Be sure, if you have not done so already, head on over to iTunes and write us a review. It doesn't matter matter if you listen to the show through a different podcast application directly from the website. Maybe you're one of the few people that only watch us on YouTube, which we really appreciate if that's the case. But go on to iTunes, find us, write us a review. It supports the show in a huge, huge way. And of course, we love to read them directly on the show as well.
We do.
It's a lot of fun.
It means the world.
All right, man. Well, this was a good show.
Dude, I had a lot of fun, man. We just kind of, again, user content driven. It means the world to have so much input from our folks. So,
Absolutely.
I had a great time, man.
Well, man, let's go have a day.
Good to see you, Bo.
Yes, sir.